Hello, it's Brad Laurie, or Blockchain Brad, and today, once again, I'm very honored to speak with none other than Ingo Rübe. He is the founder of KILT Protocol and also the CEO of BotsLab GmbH. We're going to find out a lot more about that, but firstly, I would like to thank you for being here, Ingo, to speak all about everything that we know and perhaps don't know about KILT.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're very welcome, and it's an honor to be speaking with you. And just for some disclosure, it's important I explain that I have invested in KILT in the past. I'm also a recipient of treasury funding for Polkadot. Now, Ingo, obviously KILT is something that many people within the crypto and the blockchain and the Polkadot sphere may be aware of, may have heard of, but there are some fundamental words we need to discuss before we get into the deeper aspects of what's been happening lately. And perhaps the most important one is identity itself. So do you want to just touch on what fundamentally KILT stands for in a nutshell?
Yeah, so in a nutshell, we are implementing DIDs and verifiable credentials. That is the very small nutshell. Now, many people probably don't know what DIDs and verifiable credentials are. So the idea of digital identity is not very new, and the idea of identity is even older. And the identity that we have had for the last 500 years is basically centered around faces, fingerprints, and stuff like that to identify person, and then around plastic cards, paper sheets, documents, stuff like that, which are issued by trusted entities, which belong to the person, which probably have a picture of the face on top of it, which resembles some kind of abilities or other properties of this person. So this is the old system, right? So you had your face and you had your ID card, and the ID card has a picture of your face on it. And then you have your university degree, which has maybe not your face on it, but at least your signature on it, or signature of somebody else on it, and your name on it. This is the identifier plus credential system that we had for hundreds of years, and which is actually working quite well, and which is also pretty decentralized. I can explain that later if you want.
Right. Can I just interject for one moment? Now, obviously, you've referenced the old world issues, the old world problem of identity. You're changing the game. So let's explore this a bit further. Obviously, you're going to with regard to trusted digital identity solutions, because that's really where you become the game changer, as I understand, from that old guard, that old style into the new. So do you want to keep going and explain a little bit more about the specifics of the trust and how that fits in with the digital identities and the solutions that you provide?
Exactly. So what I was going to say is that the old system is actually not that bad, right? It worked quite well. And then we moved into the digital world like 20 years ago or something. And then everything changed. It's not about your face anymore. It's which you control, and you decide if you show your face or not. It is about a central database now, which sits with Facebook and Google and all those things. So they hold the core of your identity, which is fundamentally wrong. And it uses a lot of problems like too much power with those companies, too little power with the people, and so on. Also business models which are made on top of that, which actually shouldn't be, and stuff like that. So it is problematic. And then a couple of years ago, I think in 2017, a lot of industry players and also government players came together in the so-called Decentralized Identity Foundation. I said, actually, this is a problem, and we have to tackle that. We have to work on it. But you cannot just complain, like saying, oh, no, it shouldn't be allowed. That doesn't really help, because people need some kind of identity in the digital world. They say we have to come up with a better solution. And the better solution would be a decentralized identity, where everyone, again, holds their own core to the identity, like you hold your face. And this is what the DID is. This is the decentralized identifier. And that it should also be possible to issue credentials, and this from trusted entities. And this is what the verifiable credentials are. So this has been a very, very long standardization process, very cumbersome, very boring, very much work, which actually took from 2017 to 2022. But in 2022, now we got the standardization through. It is signed off by the World Wide Web Consortium, W3C, and now people or governments and companies and individuals are moving towards this standardization and see digital identity in a new way and in a much more fair way, I would say. And this is really bad news for Facebook and Google, but it is very good news for basically everyone else.
Right. And just to interject there, you allude to enterprise, you allude to perhaps the future that is coming with regard to some of the connections you're even forging right now in Germany and beyond globally. But I want to pull back a little bit before we continue on in that sort of area of enterprise and just look at some of the buzzwords first, because for those who may not know much about it, and obviously there are some out there who are perhaps interested in learning about KILT, words like decentralized, you've touched on, secure, very important when we bring the blockchain conversation in, and scalable. They are some of those very generic terms. Did you want to just touch on those and why they matter to KILT before we get into some of the deeper aspects of the fundamentals of KILT and what it stands for?
Yeah, so decentralized, I think decentralization is a key aspect because it is always, so when you look at the current identity system in digital, it is totally centralized. When you look at the old system, which we had in the physical world, it's totally decentralized. People always don't see that, but it is totally decentralized. Everyone can be an attester. Everyone can be an issuer of a credential. I can issue you a credential that you're a great journalist. I don't know how much this is worth, actually, because who knows me, but I could actually, and it's not forbidden, right? So it is a decentralized system. I can take any role in this. I can be a verifier who looks at your credentials. I can be an issuer which issues your credential. I can also hold credentials, so I can take any role. Totally decentralized. Don't have to ask anyone. Fantastic system. In the current business world, like when you look at Google and Facebook, is totally permissioned. So no one can become a new Facebook today because Facebook is just so big you can't get there. It's really hard to get rid of them. So a decentralized system, really important. And KILT takes very much pride in also being one of the very much decentralized blockchains. Polkadot ecosystem helps there a lot because you have all the tools at hand when you are a parachain to become a decentralized system. So I don't control KILT. This is what also many people just don't understand. They say, can you change something? No, I can't. The community can. So if you want to have something changed in the system, how it works, then you can go through the governance of KILT and make a proposal. And if you find a majority of the voters behind you, then you can change anything, right? I can't, because I also have to ask the community, right? So it's really very much decentralized. And we've been working on this path to decentralization. It's not really an event, right? You can't say, oh, now we're decentralized. It's a path. And we've been working on this path ever since we actually launched the system. And we're continuously working on it. And we're pretty proud that we actually are in a very, very early stage, I would say, of decentralization right now. Then the other question was security. So security comes in through blockchain. And I think this is also something that that people should look at with blockchain projects. Are they really secured by a public permissionless blockchain? Of course, if you just run some kind of a hyperledger blockchain or something, this is not secure at all.
Right.
Because it depends on the 5 people who actually run the nodes, and they can actually make up the truth. But if you have something like Polkadot on the background, like the relay chain, which is really a public permissionless blockchain, and you send your blocks there for audit, you inherit the security of the public permissionless blockchain, which is, in the case of Polkadot, secured by billions of value. So pretty nice thing. So security, I think, is important, especially in identity. You don't want anyone to change your credentials or the validity of your credentials. So that is something that you really want in identity, because it gets very personal. And the third one I forgot. What was that? Scalability.
That's right.
And so, yeah, the system that we built is actually pretty scalable. It actually is very scalable. And this is also thanks to the idea of Polkadot, because at the Polkadot, you have this one relay chain, which only has one purpose, which is auditing the blocks of other parachains. And as a parachain, you have you create your own block space, basically, right? And this block space is not shared with anyone else. When you look at Ethereum, for example, if you have a smart contract, then you're competing for the block space that Ethereum generates. Everyone competes, every single smart contract. In Polkadot, we don't do that, right? In Polkadot, we have our own blockchain, and we can be as performant and with so much throughput as we want, and as we want to build it, without competing with anyone else, right? It's just that we have our own blockchain, and we just send the blocks for validation.
Right, and also we have the shared security model built into the Polkadot system, and obviously, Ingo, you looked at that when you were exploring your options when we last spoke. But I wanted to ask you more about the updated aspects of Polkadot with regard to the parachain to core time change. I was listening to Jay discuss with you your sentiment or ask you the questions with regard to how you felt about those transitions, and you had some strong views about that. So what do you think are some of the challenges you're seeing now as we move into the lease structure, into the core time model, moving away from the parachains? And is that perhaps also potentially a boon for KILT? Are there pros and cons to this move?
So I don't think that we really move away from the parachain model. That's the good news. I think the parachain is core to to Polkadot, and it will always be. So this is not going totally away. It is just that Polkadot noticed that they need another model on top to actually market the block space that they have, because it was a notion that the parachains as they are right now, they're not using up enough of the available core time or block space that Polkadot actually provides, right? So and that is because it is mostly, I think, everyone is basically a startup in there, and startups don't scale like from one day to the next, right? So, for example, when you look at KILT, the scaling of KILT takes a very long time because it is a new concept of identity, and it's not being adopted just because it's there. It needed the standardization first, which just came in last year, and now it needs the industry and the governments to adopt this, and this all takes years, right? So we are not using up all the possible block space that Polkadot gives us, right? And that's actually a waste of block space. So of course, Polkadot had to think, okay, maybe someone else wants all the block space that we have, and this is why they came up with this model of allowing to also buy block space in very much smaller chunks than a parachain would do. But nevertheless, the parachains will still have the option to lease for 1 or 2 months, I think, enough block space for them so that they can make some calculations on top of it, and also business calculations. And there will be also exempts that if you are early in, you can basically have a guaranteed price for the next X years, and that still makes it possible to make a business calculation on top. So it's not like parachains are totally gone, and now we are on. But of course, a couple of things change, right? So before we had the model that we were putting down some dots, and then winning an option, and then we got a lease for 2 years, and after that we actually got those dots back and could use them for paying the next slot, basically, right? And so we were paying with the opportunity cost because we couldn't stake the dots in those 2 years. Now this model changes to we actually have to pay for the next 2 months. So this is the difference in calculation, and of course that we have to consider what that does to our business, to our token economy, and so on. And these are complicated scientific questions, I would say, which cannot be 100% answered right now because we don't know 100% how it's actually going to look like. So we first have to see how it actually forms, and if the Polkadot community goes or wants to go in that direction, because it's also democratic, right? So even there, nothing is really changed until the government says yes, we want to change that. So we have to look at it, and it's also for them that's a huge move actually, and this huge move is not going from Gavin says something in summer this year. and in winter, everything is there and everything is discussed to an end and everything is implemented and tested and audited and alive on the chain. So this is a process which takes a while, and we are closely watching it and also trying to give our input on that. And then after the process is over, we can actually assess what 100% does with us.
Right. It's good to hear that it's not static. It's great to hear that you're also having input into this process as well. And it is longitudinal. It's not just, suddenly arrived and it's set in stone. So thank you for that information. Now, with regard to that term enterprise that we were talking about before, obviously that's a key component to many of the services, the solutions, many of the connections you're forging as well. Do you want to just touch on a little bit with regard to what you're currently doing in the enterprise sector and even government sector as well?
Yeah, sure. So I think what we've been doing in the last couple of years is that we try to concentrate a little bit on, not concentrate, actually we try to concentrate on two things at the same time. So we recognize that it's really, really important to work together with, for example, the ecosystem players like the other card chains, and also provide utility for them, because that is our home base, and we like to work with those people, and they are fast and they're flexible and they're nice to work with and all that. And it really feels very, very nice. Mm-hmm. But on the other side, also recognize that if we really want adoption for KILT, that means we cannot limit ourselves to the blockchain space, right? We have to go outside the blockchain space, and we have to work with corporations, and we have to work with governments, even though the decision cycles there are much longer, much more painful for us, because it takes so much time and so much work, and not everything works out, and you cannot just say, yeah, let's do that together, and then it happens. It is always a process of years, but we've been starting very early. And so we already see the first fruits basically being harvested out of that. The biggest one obviously being Deloitte, with their decision to build their KYB and KYC business on top of KILT, which is fantastic for us. And that is, I think that is also the best example of what we want to see out there, because we want to have the big companies in there, because they're generating new projects, and those new projects then with maybe even bigger companies, but also with smaller companies, they are basically our business development, right? So when Deloitte, because they have a business, right? They want to earn money with their KYC and KYB business. Yes. And they're incentivized to actually onboard more projects. And they have so much more power in the world than we have, because we are just a small startup, and they are an established company with probably hundreds of thousands, or at least tens of thousands of employees. So they have much bigger marketing and business development power.
Yes.
This is what we want. We get into together with the big ones, and then have sound partnerships with those guys who are actually building business, and then occasionally also pushing KILT into the market. That's nice.
Absolutely. Well said. And I do want to touch on the Deloitte partnership, the integration, or the just the way in which you've aligned in that respect. Being a global company, it's a big deal. I also wanted to ask you, just as you've been explaining this, do you think it adds more credibility to something like the KILT protocol, something like the KILT model, when we see it move beyond the blockchain? Because there is a lot of noise, there is a lot of buzz, there's a lot of marketing push, there's all kinds of different agenda and networks that do happen. But when you see legitimate international recognition for the alliance that can be forged between a protocol and beyond, do you think that really sets you apart from some of the other things that you do see that emerge in sort of the blockchain domain, the crypto noise that you do sometimes see? Not everyone forges these kind of international relationships.
Definitely not. So blockchain is a new technology, and it's a playing field as Wild West. And so there's many different characters and many different goals, and you cannot say, yeah, blockchain is moving in this direction. So there's always individuals, and there's individual goals, and companies and protocols which have different goals in the world. And I think it's good, like in the way it is. So everyone is allowed to have their own opinion. If one's opinion is, hey, a meme coin is the best idea in the world, then I can respect that, because apparently they somehow work. As a business person, I can say only congratulations. I never thought of that. So we have a little bit of a different approach. Our approach is that, or my strong belief is that blockchain actually is a very beautiful technology, and it can help in many different ways to actually shape a very interesting and more democratic future. And this is what I'm standing for, and this is what I'm working on. And I'd like to have this opinion. And in that case, for us, it is important that we show that this technology actually has applications in the real world, and that it is possible to solve real world problems with blockchains, even in a way that the real world or the user in the real world doesn't even recognize that there's a blockchain behind it, which is very important because blockchains are so complicated. And this is what we're trying to show. And I think we are on a very good path to show that. When you get your KYC with Deloitte, you don't really notice that there's a blockchain behind it, which is pretty cool. And you can still work with it, but you have all the features. You have the security of the blockchain. You have the decentralization. You own your credential, right? You own your KYC credential. And you probably have gone through one or two KYC processes in the world. You might have noticed that the KYC credential does not belong to you. It belongs to the company which issued it. With a Deloitte credential for the first time ever, it's your credential. You can reuse it without going to a new KYC. How fantastic. So this is small steps. This is not changing the whole world, but this is showing where blockchain actually really has a purpose. And this is what we try to do, because we believe that in the end, a stable, continuous growth rate and the success also for the system can only be established if it is actually used for something, and not just something crazy going down.
Right. So clearly, we talked about at the beginning, you have this problem that you found from the old world. You moved into a solution, and then you looked for adoption via these partners. And I think that's really testament to the push that your team have put forth with trying to build credibility into the movement to try and get digital identity used in these enterprise sectors. So congratulations so far to forging those. And there's others that I've read about as well we can talk about. But let's pull it back to the DID for a moment, or the digital identifier that you were talking about. I remember listening to an interview recently again with Jay, and you were talking about the difference between the signature and the face, the private and the public. Do you want to talk a little bit more on that and why it is important to have the private element of the digital identity and also the public with regard to how you move beyond signature to the face itself? Because not everything allegedly needs to be, or arguably needs to be, in the public frame. You need to have some elements of privacy.
Yeah, that is actually also just a copy of the physical world, right? In the physical world, you decide when if you want to sign something. It's as simple as that. There's no one hopefully is going to sign something. That's the private thing, right? And so it's your decision if you do something. So taking this decision from a centralized service to a decentralized person, I think it's a huge step forward in the digital world, because when using centralized identity providers, for example, they sign things on your behalf and you don't even know what they signed, right? If you want to log in with something and you have this login with Facebook button there, that's actually then Facebook and this company talking about you in the end, and you are not even part of the conversation. And at the end, you get nice login to the new service, but you also get to log in to Facebook, because if you delete your Facebook account, then you can't log in there anymore. So that is really and that's centralizing things, and that is not good.
Right, and I think that's very appealing to many of the generations that we see now, especially the younger generations, where they really want much more autonomy. They want much more self-sovereignty, as you mentioned. And even the slogan with regard to KILT itself, I remember reading that earlier today, and it was something like putting the digital data back into your hands, literally through that self-sovereign approach. And the reason I think it's so exciting is that it is that sort of reciprocal exchange between the enterprise, that balance of power between the self-sovereign agent and then trying to build this into a new model. And that's why KILT is perhaps, quite innovative in this space, that we see moving out, because you're literally pushing an agenda that perhaps hasn't been done before with the old world system of, as you alluded to, you're just a number, you're just an identity. You're literally changing the game, giving people their identity on the blockchain and beyond. I wanted to ask you just quickly with regard to the team you have. When we spoke last, you had a very strong team. It's always important to hear for anyone who's looking into a team, a protocol in a business, or in your case, moving into something quite unique with digital identity. How is that team moving? How is it building? Are you adding new people? What's the key features? I read it when I was doing the research. You focus on areas like software, academia, government, enterprise, and media. But if you could just describe the team to me, why it's valuable, how it's going, what would you say?
Yeah. So first of all, growing. I don't know exactly when we spoke, but I'm trying to keep the team at a number between 15 and 20, and also hopefully for all future. So we don't want to grow to 400 people because then it becomes not really manageable. And also, what we do is we provide infrastructure. And we don't do the projects ourselves. So if big company X comes and says, hey, we want to build this and that, then we say, congratulations, we built it. We can help you inform that we can explain to your devs how KILT actually works, but we're not going to build it for you, and we're not going to write you an invoice, right? It's a decentralized system. Who writes invoices in decentralized systems? So we want to keep it lean, and we want to keep it stable. And we don't want to overly grow it so that we have too many different functions in there and too many directions, and that we also get too much into the software development in forms of applications. There's other people who can do that. Look at Apilon, for example. They're doing fantastic applications, and we work together with them. And if we have a big or a customer or user of the system, we normally look into the ecosystem and ask, okay, who has capacity, who wants to build it? And this is what we're going to do in the future as well. And I think there will be companies coming up, we've seen one or two, which actually specialize in doing KILT projects, which would be very nice, but we don't want to lead those companies. So we don't want to have those people in-house. Of course, that is probably a nice business model, but it would distract us from actually building the core. So we always want to stay here and just build the core and deliver functionality to great builders. And this is our idea. So other people make the business, we make the infrastructure, which is a very nice point to be in, because you can be scientific, you can engage in scientific discussions, you have somehow a little bit of a neutral position, which is very nice, where we're not selling something. We just consultants basically for
right. And it's exciting. Sorry to interrupt. It's exciting to see that you're also making those connections with other companies, particularly in the blockchain space, and we can talk about that in a moment because I want to name some of them. But let's pull it back to the scope of KILT for a second with regard to the future, how you envisage that, whether it be AI, machine, virtual, essentially just those potential use cases that maybe you want to touch on that really show that we're just at the beginning of KILT's journey.
I think AI is a very interesting thing, but so there's many different things which we actually have to take in account at the same time. So first is the adoption of DIDs and verifiable credentials, which is definitely not made everywhere in the world. Your passport is probably not a DID, or doesn't use a DID, and that is still the problem we have to solve. And this is going surprisingly fast, which is good. We see the first governments actually moving into the direction of DIDs and verifiable credentials. Fantastic. And this will be very good case, and they will be rolled out through the whole world. So this is so we're moving there in a very nice way, and this is very good for us and very assuring for us that we actually, well, it was a bet in the end to say DIDs and verifiable credentials are going to be the standard, and now we can say for sure at this point they will be the standard, and everyone's going to use that. So pushing that is very important for us. So this is, I think, like 75% of our focus. Because that is the growth that we really want to achieve, right? And this is where we want to not be left out, right? So if it is DAD, people should think of KILT. So this is the most important thing. And then we come to emergent technologies, like AI, and I would say governance is also one of them, because that's the two things which become really important and also interconnected in the future. So AI is a different type of entity, I would say. It is an AI is like a person in a way, but it's not really a person. So it's more a machine, or maybe it's a network of machines. Here again, we come to the question of accountability. So if an AI says something, is the AI actually accountable for it? That's a very interesting question. How is that put into perspective with the person saying something, especially if the person says something because the AI told him that this is the truth? So here come up questions which society will deal with a great deal in the next couple of years, probably. And here's another piece where blockchain can actually help. But this is very much in the beginning of research, I would say. So these problems just came up a year or two ago. There's no books you can buy about that. There's very, very little research since being conducted on that, but there is already research starting, and we try to be part of those discussions. And also maybe opinion lead a little bit the discussions. I think we're doing quite good there, but this is very much at the beginning. This is not where we plan to implement something in next year or something.
I see.
This is in the research. It will take a couple of years, but the necessity is huge. And the other thing, which is maybe a little bit further down the road, but where Polkadot actually plays an extremely important role without anyone noticing normally, is governance. Because when you have AI systems, they are somehow working autonomously, and they are machines. And if they want to have accountability or something, or if they want to have business models, or if they want to be companies maybe in the future, how do you govern those? So the governance models which we have right now, they either govern states or they govern companies. But we don't have anything to govern machines. And what is really important, and I think a really important application of blockchain in the future, probably the most important, even more important than payments with Bitcoins and stuff, it will be how can we put governance models on machines? Because the only ones in the world who actually think about these things are the blockchain people. They're making experiments. So the governance models that we've seen, from the very, very cheap ones, like in Bitcoin, to the little bit more sophisticated in Ethereum, to the extremely sophisticated in Polkadot. These things, the experiences that we make right now are extremely valuable. And you will read a lot of books about that in a couple of years. How can we actually, and we're doing this in a live system. So we're doing these experiments actually in Polkadot right now, which is fantastic because we can see the results right away. And not everything works like, oh, fantastic, this is exactly what people wanted. But as Polkadot is so changeable, those changes are being made while the experiment is conducted. And this is fantastic, because what is right now is the most sophisticated, I think, governance system that is out there in technology. And it is still very much evolving. And this is actually, to all the people who are unhappy with OpenGov, I'd like to say that, hey, what we see there is the best thing in the world. And nobody has made it better. And we all are in charge of improving this thing, because then it will improve. And if we are improving at the scale which we are improving right now, this will be the system where everyone looks on, because we have so many tasks for governing DAOs, for governing AIs, for governing even NGOs.
Absolutely. It's definitely revolutionizing the game right now. OpenGov is a buzzword. I'll make sure I put links in the description below for that reference. Now, with regard to some of the things that you offer as services, we noticed that you have the Sporon wallet, you have social KYC, the did sign, you have specific services that people can go to. Do you want to touch on any of those specifically that you think are a standout, or do you want to just address it generally?
I'd like to maybe talk about one which is not even yet published.
Please do. Please do.
That is probably a very interesting one. When you look at Sporon tries to, Sporon was initially built so that people do have an identity, because what you have in crypto wallets out there currently is more like, hey, you can send a coin from A to B, and maybe you can do staking. But this is very much coin-centered. And identity is something different. It has this ID, it has verifiable credentials. You have to put them into your wallet, in your purse, basically, and be ready to show them. So this is functionality which is not normally part of wallets, which is, and then we said, okay, if people want to play around with KILT and use KILT, they need some kind of an identity wallet, so this is one with Sporon. And it has some cool functionality of KILT, like the Web3 names and all that inside, and they can use it pretty easily. But in the end, it should not be the goal that we provide this wallet, because we are not wallet providers, we are infrastructure providers.
Right.
So what we need to make these functionalities, like dealing with DIDs, producing DIDs, receiving verifiable credentials, showing verifiable credentials, we need to make this accessible. And the software engineer always thinks, yeah, Sporon is open source, just take it out there. But this is what people really don't like. They need something which is more like a toolbox where you can have all this functionality and build it into your own wallet, which is mainly a coin wallet today, but maybe tomorrow you want to have identity in there as well, or maybe like looking at Deloitte and companies like that, or Axel Springer is actually that brought us to the idea. They don't want to do with coins at all. They just want to have identity in the wallet. So you need something which is a toolbox. And this toolbox is not saying dates, but it is already in a quite good shape, I would say. It's going to be called Nessie. And it enables industry, but also developers to just build identity functionality into their wallets. And then it's not Sporon anymore. And maybe Sporon is even not relevant in 2 years.
Okay, so Nessie. Nessie, that's the word that I've not read, I've not heard. So that's something that is quite new in the pipeline. So how far ahead are you in building Nessie, and where are you at right now?
So the value of Nessie for us is that it will increase adoption of KILT, hopefully, because it will be much easier for companies, governments, for anyone to actually build their identity wallets, or for wallet providers to add functionality, add identity functionality to their wallets. And that will definitely help us, right? So that's always the idea. We want to have KILT out there in the world. And the other question was?
Well, with regard to how far along are you with regard to a team perhaps that are focused on Nessie? I'm just very interested in this because I haven't heard of it before.
Yeah, so, well, let's say if you call us and if you really want to play with it and you are want to integrate it and you don't really need it to be audited and documented in something, you can do that already. So we're using it internally already. That it is not in the shape that we would actually put it out. And this is going to take a couple of months, definitely. But if you are eager to work with it, just reach out to us. We are happy to share the source code.
Well, you've heard it from Ingo. Nessie is the word of the day with regard to KILT innovation right now. Now, let's pull it back to Deloitte. And I apologize for this delay in the interview, but it is a big thing. Deloitte is an international name. It's a brand, and congratulations for the integration. I just want to clarify some things for the audience, hopefully through you, Ingo. Now, what specifically is the relationship with Deloitte? Because I ask you this in the context that sometimes we do hear buzzwords, we hear partnerships that perhaps aren't partnerships, but what's the reality? What's the truth? What is Deloitte in the context of KILT in the integration and the partnership?
Yeah, so, okay, to make it pretty simple, we are providing an infrastructure which allows to make DIDs and verifiable credentials. Deloitte is a company which has been active in the KYB business for probably forever. They have done that mostly on paper. So paper stamps and stuff like that. And they have a lot of trust. So if you come somewhere with a paper saying that you are actually Brett Lowry, and this has a stamp of Deloitte, you can basically go anywhere in the world and people will believe you that you are actually Brett Lowry, which also in many cases. But on paper is not really modern, and it was more focused on KYB, which is know your business, which you need in company interactions. And then we have a lot of KYC business, which is becoming more important in many ways. It's not only that we have ICOs, but we also all have bank accounts, and we are all doing things on the internet which require at least a partial KYC, like e-commerce things, like if you want to prevent things like somebody ordering a Rolex on your behalf and stuff like that. So it would be nice if you know actually who you're dealing with as a person, and let alone all those things like age verifications, which are interesting not only for going into a bar, like we always have this example, but also in the internet is quite interesting for adult sites and stuff like that. So there's a huge market for KYC and not full KYC, but very partial KYC. And Deloitte notices that, and they say, okay, we have the trust that if it's signed by Deloitte, basically people believe that it's true. And also governments normally believe that, which is a great thing because not many companies out there in the world have this trust to be able to do this. But we need an electronic infrastructure for actually pushing it out to the people. Now, we could go Web 2, but now there's Web 3 out there, and people are moving to DIDs and verifiable credentials, and blockchains actually produce really nice security. So why don't we put it all together, make the leapfrog from paper to Web 3, and not only do it digital, but do it digital with DIDs and verifiable credentials so that we are compatible with future movements of governments, and also make it on a blockchain so that we have the most modern security features in there, which the world can provide. And this is where you land at KILT, right? And so this is the type of cooperation. So we are building the infrastructure. They are building a business on top of that. Sounds sad because we are not getting all the money. They are getting all the money, but it's fantastic for us because when they get all the money, they are very much incentivized to build this business in a way that we cannot build it because they have much more reputation, much better links into the corporate world than we will ever have. And so they are doing basically very nice business development for us. That's the relation.
Absolutely. And obviously there's immense potential there. Based in Germany now, but how far is this reaching? Deloitte's an international company, so how many countries are you working with or currently, and are you planning to expand this relationship given the nature of Deloitte?
This is a question which you have to ask Deloitte, and the answer is not Deloitte Germany, by the way, it's Deloitte Switzerland.
My apologies.
No problem. But in the Deloitte context, the people in Switzerland are basically responsible for KYC, and they are responsible for it worldwide. So it's like, okay, they happen to be in Switzerland, but they could also be in the US. So it's already working worldwide. So I don't know if you've seen the Polymac.
Yes, I did see that.
Well, you could basically do the KYC from any country, right? Other than those countries which were excluded. But you could do your KYC from any country there. And that is, so they're building it globally from the start. And the next project, which we are going to announce next week, Wednesday, on India Blockchain Week, together with Deloitte, I think underlines that very much because it is purely international project, which probably has not a lot to do with Switzerland or Germany.
Let's dig. I'm going to dig a little bit here. So tell us a bit more. What can you tell us without telling us the name? This sounds quite big, Ingo. This sounds like you're a bit excited about this. What's going on? What's happening?
I have to be very careful because I'm not going to steal Deloitte's thunder because it's their project, right? It's a project, and we're just part of it. We're totally happy that we can jump onto stage with them next Wednesday, because this could potentially be one of the biggest blockchain adoption projects that the world has seen. This is as much as I can say. So,
well, I respect that. I appreciate the little hint there. We're all going to be interested. We can't help but perhaps FOMO into some of those comments. Now, let's pull it back to the use case as well. It's really interesting to see when it's with regard to issuing these digital credentials for both the KYC and the KYB. You have a whole list outlined of all the different use cases, from DeFi to age verification. Regulatory compliance was a big push that you had, e-commerce, fundraising. There's so many things, and arguably more. Are you excited about the future of what these use cases can bring?
Yes, I am, because they're popping up more and more, and this is actually what makes our life so interesting. Because we get calls inbounds from healthcare systems, from energy. So we're doing a lot in energy, actually, and energy is such an interesting field. Not only CO2 certificates, which come to mind first, probably where you need identity of machines, of corporations, of persons, but also things like we do together with the German Energy Foundation, with DENA, which is part of economic ministry. So this is where they put KILT nodes actually on smart meters, which is fantastic, because that's an application of KILT that we would never have thought of, right? And this is the power of doing something so general and introspective, that people actually come with their own ideas how they could use identity and what they could use it for, and then build projects together with us or together with other partners which are using this infrastructure. And this is, so I think the is fantastic because it doesn't even involve people, right? It's machine identity completely. And KILT shows that it doesn't only work for KYC, where everyone talks about, but it also works for machine identity. Fantastic.
Right.
So this is such an interesting life. You see me still sitting here after 6 years, and that has a reason. It's because it's never getting boring if you are in the identity space.
Yes, I mean, sometimes the aspects of the protocol itself might be boring, but not the progress that you're making, not these moves in different directions, especially enterprise. With regard to things like Deloitte, going back to them, building in their own, I guess, products or their own services, they even have their own credential wallet. And they've been influenced, as I understand, through the work that you've done as a team. So how impressed are you with Deloitte building in embedding some of these technologies into their own system to then facilitate, arguably build their own business using some of these, models that have come forth recently with wallet design?
I'm very impressed because it works and it looks beautiful, which is good. This is everything that we can expect, actually. So I'm really impressed not only with what they're building, but also with the ideas that they come up with, how to build the business on top of that. And we learned a lot in the last 1 or 2 years about how can we actually enable big companies to build their own stuff on top of KILT. And we have learned that we have to improve our documentation. We have learned that it's not a great idea to tell people, hey, take the Sporon apart and build your own wallet with it. That is a much better idea to have Nessie, where they can much easier build it. And so this is all learning by doing, right? So we see how this thing works. We see what the problems of the companies integrating KILT are. We trying to react as good as we can to make it better and easier for the next ones. But we see that it is possible, which is also good, because sometimes you build things which are so complicated then that people in the end say, hey, maybe we try without you. And that didn't happen, which was good. But of course, there's always more said. There's always room for improvement. We try to improve as good as we can to make it easier to integrate, to make it easier to understand. And that's a great deal of documentation. That was just hired a new documentation lead, who's actually a fantastic person, because he made most of the documentation for Ethereum before. So he knows quite nicely how to build things, how to describe things so that people actually understand it and can use it. And he's now doing the KILT documentation that we're improving greatly. And so these things are important, I think. But the overall performance, I would say, was fantastic. Of course, it is slow. When you deal with big companies, this is always the case. Make no mistake about that, but that is not the development process. This is the decision-making process. This is compliance. This is legal department. This is marketing department. This is everyone that has to be involved inside the global organization. It's not like anyone can just go and do a great project together with KILT. They have to align with hundreds of people, and this is what takes forever. The implementation is the beginning.
It's quite amazing, actually, just how big this partnership was when you consider that Deloitte is one of the leaders, if not the leader in Europe for RegTech. It's a credit to you that you forged this, and it's obviously testament to a lot of years of work on KILT's, with regard to KILT's team. Now, the credentials themselves, the KYC credentials we'll be talking about or alluding to at Deloitte, they're now live. Is that right? So
that's in the Polkadot project, there have been used. I don't know exactly how many have been issued, but it's a significant number that have been already issued, and people not only have got them, but they already have used them, something which is fantastic. And so the proof of concept for Deloitte is now fixed, so they can move onwards to the next project.
Right. Well, congratulations for everything thus far. I'm looking forward to hearing more about Nessie in the future. Scytale or Scytale, I'm never sure how to pronounce that, the venture capital team that's really been supporting KILT and other projects as well in the Polkadot ecosystem. I wanted to talk to you about their connection with regard to the Polkadot Key Account Unit that was recently announced. What exactly is it, and how does that connection work, and what does it involve?
Yeah, so the idea behind the Polkadot Key Account Unit was more like, you noticed that there's a decentralization process going on in Polkadot, which we really very much appreciate. And it was, so what we felt when we talked is that there's actually huge potential for Polkadot as Polkadot, not only for the purchase, but as Polkadot itself. For being used in government cases like CDBCs and whatnot, and also big corporations, because it solves a problem that no one else can solve, and that is the problem of producing a network. When you have a network of companies or citizens or governments or so, which actually don't trust each other, but which have to work together in some way or form. And they want to do that in a way that is secured by a public permissionless blockchain, but they don't want it to be a public permissionless blockchain. They wanted to have it as a partially closed system where they can actually decide if somebody can look into the data or not. So this is something that you can solve only with a parachain. No one else can solve that, because in a parachain, like, let's make an example that's easier. Say you have 3 countries and they want to have CO2 emission certificates cross-border. Then they issue those certificates. They probably don't trust each other, but those certificates are worth money, right? So the 2 bigger countries could actually, if you use Hyperledger, for example, for that, then the 2 bigger companies could actually collude and just take the money from the smaller country, and they don't want. And also, maybe you can't do that as a smart contract, because in a smart contract, in Ethereum, you would have the security of a public permissionless blockchain, and these things couldn't happen, but then everything would be public. And maybe the countries say, yeah, actually, we want to protect our industry, so the other country may look in, but third, fourth country may not look into that. So they want to have some privacy there, and they want to run the nodes themselves. There's only one solution on the planet for that, as far as I know, and that's Polkadot. And these features, there's tons of them. These features, which are going very much into the enterprise direction, which go very much into the government direction, they have never been really sold or maybe they have been solved in the first 1 or 2 years of Polkadot, but then they have been somehow a little bit not being forced. And when we think of the future of Polkadot, this is definitely not the only growth sector, right? Core time is much more important. Focus on core time, 80%. Please leave us 20% for looking into the adoption there, because the adoption there produces a lot of demand for core time in the end. Because when governments start to do the CO2 certificates on Polkadot with a parachain, then this parachain is going to use up a lot more of the core time than KILT currently does. So very interesting use case for Polkadot, and we should work on that. And as that hasn't been done too much before, we think it is time to establish something like a unit which actually works in that direction, which is definitely not the total focus of Polkadot, but which is something which is like 20% of the BD focus. And we propose that we build something.
Well, there's a lot going on, and even with regards to other enterprise collaborations, things like Axel Springer, you mentioned Dina, we talked in depth about Deloitte, and there's a lot going on. There's others that you're going to be announcing soon. So you're full steam ahead with regard to enterprise, it's clear. What about marketing? It's not a comfortable topic that most CEOs want to talk about, but in this domain, everyone wants to know about what's being done. OpenGov is opening up an incredible opportunity for people to submit proposals, as we've seen unfold. But in your position, from all the different perspectives you're hearing from the key stakeholders in marketing themselves, what are your thoughts on the importance of it? What are your thoughts on KILT engaging with that? And what is happening with regard to marketing right now?
Yeah, so, marketing, how do you define marketing? So I'm pretty happy with the marketing that we have. Because we have been very straight on focusing on the technology and not focusing on anything else. And I think this is what you should do as an infrastructure. When you're an infrastructure, you should talk about infrastructure and not something adjacent. And also, it makes you very much legally compliant, and it makes it possible for you to speak with counterparties like governments and so on, if you are totally compliant. So we have been very much focused on total compliance. I know that not everyone's totally happy with that, but we can't change it because the structure of the users that we have, like governments and big enterprise, they just want us to be, we are required to be totally compliant, so we stay 100% compliant. I think Polkadot has also done a great job in that direction. It's very, very good. I think that people start thinking about exposing Polkadot a little bit more, because the exposure of Polkadot has been also something which has been a little bit neglected, because it's very much technology focused, and any great technology will find its way and to adoption and whatnot. Maybe this is not the case, or maybe it's the case later, but to accelerate that, doing marketing and spending money from the treasury there is not a bad idea, I would say. And we see that there's need for that, and there's also majorities for that. And if there's majorities for that, that can't be bad, right? So because we do have a democratic system there.
Right. And we see right now, literally unfolding in OpenGov, many proposals coming forth, including marketing for the first time. There's been a strong push for that and an agenda to educate via marketing. So are you excited for what we're seeing with the likelihood of more education via OpenGov proposals, via the work being done? Are you excited for what could be a bit of a run on Polkadot education, and thus on the parachains, thus on any protocol that's building, in the tech stack?
Yes, I think we've already seen that to a small extent with the Polkadot Academy, which they launched, I think there have been 2 so far, and the third is coming up. So this produces, so we noticed the Academy. So when the Academy happens, even though we are not even involved in this thing, people start talking about us, people start calling us, people start wanting to build projects on top of KILT. So yes, definitely very, very helpful. Education, extremely helpful, because it is a complicated system. And we've seen that in the past. So when I went to university, it was the area of the very small personal computers, the 268 or something. So that was the time there, or 368 maybe. And then all of a sudden, the whole university was full of Sun Microsystem workstations. Fantastic machines. I've never seen something like that before. They were all sponsored by Sun Microsystems because they wanted to have the people who get education in computer science actually just run on these machines already. So everyone wanted to have a Sun Microsystem machine for their home data. Not everyone could afford it, but so I could. But it was. This is how you do that. You have to be where the education is, because the people who are getting educated are the ones who are shaping the future in the end. So education is extremely important, because this is where ideas come out of. And Polkadot is a complicated technology, so you have to get educated around it, but it has possibilities that the others don't have. And if you know that, you will always be better than the guys to try on the others. And this is why education, we really have to push forward. Totally excited.
Well said. Now, with regard, you touched on purpose, throughout the interview. I wanted to also talk about the purpose of the token. It's not something that many CEOs want to talk about, and I respect however you would like to answer this, but it is important I ask. Now, we see the debate right now with the SEC, with many securities. We see very strong pushback from the Polkadot community with regard to the DOT token being a very functional utility. It has true value beyond measure in its decentralized frame. Now, with KILT, what is the purpose of the token? And I ask you this because obviously there's going to be community constantly pushing the agenda of price, and we're not going to discuss that. We don't need to. But there is always that element of pressure, from that community saying, when is this price going to go up, blah, blah, blah. But let's get to the point about the actual purpose, that from the business mindset, from the protocol mindset, what's its functionality? And in that respect, how do you see it evolve? How does this build in? Is it built into the use cases of the future and thus the growth of KILT?
Definitely. That has all been published in 2020, I think. So it's no big secret. Many people just don't really follow that. But the purpose is KILT is what you would call in most countries a utility token. So it really has a utility. What is the utility? There's smaller utilities like staking. There's utilities like paying gas. But the most important utility of KILT is actually that if you use up space on the KILT blockchain by, for example, putting the public part of your DID on the chain, then you use not only computing power, but also space in the database. You can, or you have to, if you do that, you have to deposit KILT coins for that. That means that they stay on your account, but you cannot move them. You cannot use them for governance. You cannot use them for staking. You cannot use them for transferring. So they're locked there until you give up the space. So if you say, I don't want to my DID anymore, then it is unlocked and you can transfer, stake, whatever you want to do again. So the more DIDs, and here we come to the purpose and also to the future, the more DIDs are actually registered on the KILT blockchain, the less tokens are there on the free market.
Makes very much sense to me. That math, that logic, that economics, that makes sense. It's all based on actual use with regard to the DIDs. So given some of the things that no one really else, other than the team, know, do you anticipate more uptake of that token for that utility in the future? With the things about things coming, the enterprise, I think that's important for the community to understand that relationship between the utility and the purpose, and how you lock up utilizing that token for a genuine real purpose in real time. So is it likely that there's going to be more adoption from the things that right now?
So I cannot predict the future, but what we're working on, like I said before, is adoption, right? So this is the thing that we do. So we are not in the business of pushing out new applications every 5 minutes and making crazy updates and pivoting around and stuff like that. The only thing that we do currently is working on adoption. If this is totally successful in the end, I'm not here to predict.
The thing I wanted to ask you now is those blockchain partners that you touched on with Apple before, but you've got Nova, another big supporter, and certainly others. So are there any key Polkadot partnerships that you are forging now or in the future that are going to be really integral or really important to your evolution as the protocol?
I guess there are some, but it's always the thing of stealing others' people. I'm with the project managers before, so I may say that we are in talks with InBarge, for example, because they have great use cases for KILT. But we are also in touch with a blockchain which just recently became a parachain, which is more on the energy side of things, because we're working together in the Dena project anyway together, and there might be a possibility for working closer together.
And they wouldn't happen to be a standalone blockchain by any chance, would they?
No.
Well, let's look into this later. We'll catch up and talk about that one. But it is great to know that there's a lot coming with regard to those integrations and those partnerships.
Yeah, I think what is really important to know about that, those integrations, those collaborations are now always around what we call the decentralized identity. This is something which was actually funded by governance, state-level governance of Polkadot. We were, I think, one of the first 5 to be funded by OpenGov for that. And that is a development which took place from October until December this year, and it's going to be launched in January. So in time, for those who have bets on that, I think there are bets on that actually. So we are going to launch that in January, and that enables other parachains to use Polkadot mechanisms to actually have our identity on their chain.
Wow. That's big.
Because you want your own identity system then, and that saves you so much time when you're building something. And this is just 2 simple pallets that you put into your one simple pallet, which you put in your chain, and then you can use the KILT identity. And that's really a fantastic movement. And this has never been done before in any other ecosystem. And this is another thing where Polkadot actually stands out through the collaboration. And other parachains are really excited about that because they can just use the stuff and they don't have to think about it. They don't have to implement it. It's just making them so much faster.
Well, and Ingo, sorry to interrupt, but that's a big deal because potentially your palette could be integrated into every parachain that we see now, potentially. I mean, if you build enough relationships with many of them, is that the plan, is to gradually have KILT be part of the broader eco, I guess, built in rather than just, standalone? Not that you are, because you're already forging partnerships, but it sounds like that's the way it's going.
Yeah, I mean, it's open source, it's out there, it's free, just use it. It's an altar. This is it's treasury funded. It's not that we have a great business model and behind that are going to sell that also. It is for the community, and we are really happy to see that the community is actually picking this feature up.
Absolutely.
Because it's something that was paid by the community and is now used by the community. This is how it should be. And so it would be fantastic to see everyone picking it up, but maybe not everyone.
Yeah, well, there's a lot going on. I mean, right now there's scientific articles happening. You've got things like associations that you're connected to, and there's a list of them. I would imagine that you're very, very busy in conferences. So what's the plan for the future in terms of you stepping out, leading this initiative, attending conferences, for example, building your rapport in relationship with associations? Where are you sitting there? How busy are you in that? Obviously, you're very busy in your 2 roles now, but how busy are you leading that, I guess, that agenda to educate on the stage?
Well, it's so we have been on some, I think we reduced from 22 to 23 a great deal. So I think we counted 22 and I was at 45 stages or something, which was a little bit too much because it was basically every week. So we tried to focus on really important events now and are not hanging around on every stage. So it's more like once a month now, which is still a lot of work. But also I think that's very rewarding because you really talk with a lot of people there. It's not that you jump on stage and then you jump back to the plane or something. So you stay a day or two. And I'm really looking forward to India, for example. So I'm flying on Monday, I come back on Saturday. I stay the whole week because it's so great to meet the India community and also to come up with new ideas and how they actually view identity. It's a different continent and stuff like that. So really important for me to actually to meet people, to get new ideas, to discuss in depth and with time, not just on the Zoom like 30 minutes and then next 30 minutes, but really sit down with someone and have a beer really makes a difference.
Absolutely. And, congratulations for also making those relationships and forging those connections with key countries. India has such a big population, so that's going to be interesting to see how that evolves. With regard to resources as well, online, for example, not just, moving on the ground, is there a lot of resources available for those who want to learn about KILT? Is it based primarily on the website for KILT, or are there other places that you can go to learn about what you're building, what you're doing, and what the future sort of holds for KILT Protocol?
Yeah, well, so I think we have a lot of resources actually, and so we do have a Medium channel. We have in the Telegram channel, you can come in with quick questions. So I think there's a lot of education stuff happening. I hope that we will be more integrated in Polkadot Academy in the future. And with all the things that you see coming up for education, and so I just had a call with people from Brazil last night, and they're also doing educational stuff there. And so we are always happy to contribute. It's just please reach out to us and ask for content. We are there to make lectures. We are there to be on the conference and stuff like that. So we like that very much, and we are, we really want to participate.
Absolutely. Well, Ingo, you are a very, very busy man. I really do appreciate that this lengthy interview. You've dedicated well over an hour to this. As the founder of KILT, is there anything you'd like to say or add that perhaps I've missed, or perhaps that you regard as something very important to let everyone know that you are currently doing in KILT?
No, because you are always very well prepared. And that's the second interview that we had. The first was also, you asked every single question that comes to my mind. So I have nothing to add. That was fantastic again. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And I really look forward to the next time we catch up. It's always great to hear of the building, all of the work that you're doing. I think it's important to hear about some of the transparency that you've very much provided. And most importantly, I think for those who want to FOMO in, there is definitely news to come. There's exciting activities that KILT as a team are doing right now. And we'd love to hear more about that. But from the CEO of Byte Labs, from the KILT founder, thank you very much for your time. And I look forward to seeing you again. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, Ingo Rübe, thank you very much for your time.